Good afternoon, fellow citizens. Welcome back to the Citizens Chat Show. My name is Masesa, Demiano, your show host. I was off last week, and Comrade Hidega Moses stepped in for me. And here I have to thank you for always following this conversation every Friday to 4 p.m. on Civic Space TV. Today, we're discussing the declining democracy in Africa, but also the coups, the emergence of the coups that are happening across in the recent times. And to discuss this and much more, I am joined by my panel of really experts who will have to help me and help us understand what is happening today. And joined here today is Sarah Bireete. Sarah is the Executive Director with the Center for Constitutional Governance, and she returns back after a long while. Sarah, you're welcome.
Thank you. I took off time to do some farming.
Yeah, thank you. How is it going?
No, the dry season is affecting us, but we are preparing for the rains.
Yeah, interesting. And for the first time, the first timer on the chat show is Dismas Nkunda, and is the founder and executive director of Atrocities Africa, Watch Africa, but he's also a journalist. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. It's nice.
Journalists that covered most of the conflicts in the Greater Exhibition.
Interesting. Yes, very good experts on this. And followed is our usual suspect, Dr. Deus Kamunyu. He's a lecturer at Makerere. Deus, you're welcome back.
Very happy to be back here. I was asking myself what the EDs. Sarah is farming. But I'm told, like Tamari Mrundi said, Mogo was expelled from Portugal. Maybe it has a problem. You get Nodding's disease.
And finally, Batamuliza Jackie. Batamuliza is a research fellow with the Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies. Jackie, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I think it's my first time to host you, although you've been on this space before.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. And just into the conversation, in a brief background, according to Powell and Tynes, the data of about 486 attempted coups, and of course there are those that were successful, carried out around the world since 1950. Africa has since had 214, and it's the most in the region, with 106 of them successful. The first successful coup in Africa happened in July 23rd, 1952 in Egypt, where military backed up foreign powers deposed of King Farouk I. So, and of course they did that with a constitutional monarch and established a republic. In Uganda, of course, we've had several, about 5 of them, in 71, 74, 85. And recently in Africa, the continent here, a significant increase of coups in the last years and a half. The military figures were in Mali, we've seen Chad, Sudan, latest Burkina Faso, and the successful coup on 23rd January in Burkina Faso, dissolved a national assembly and detained President Roch Marc Christian Kabore as the president. And into this conversation, I would want to start with Sarah on the issue of democracy. The question is Africa experiencing a declining democracy today?
Well, compared to the past 2 decades, yes, we are on a decline. But briefly on the background to the cause that you've shared, you know, Africa has been struggling with getting right, you know, the basics of democracy. Some leaders, when they reach a diminishing trend, they start claiming that the democracy is foreign. But when they were popular and they still voted highly and they had the trust of the people, then democracy was okay. But just the period you described of 1956 to 2001, there were a total of 80 successful. coups, and I think Uganda has a fair share of that,
Yeah,
about
5.
4 or 5.
Yeah.
And 108 failed coups just in Africa. In the last 2 years, we've had six coup attempts, 2 failed and 4 successful ones. So when you look at that trend, and given the provisions that are in place, which should supposedly usher in constitutional democracy with the peaceful or safeguards for peaceful transfer of power, I want to revert a bit to President Museveni's statement that he has since amended, because he found himself a problem than a solution he thought he was offering, when he rightly said that the problem of Africa are not its people, but the leaders who overstay in power. He has recently, after becoming part of the problem, amended it, adding that without elections. But he authored a book, which later was bought off the shelves. And in Makerere bookshop, people were even given orders never to refer to that book of what is Africa's problem. In that book, that statement is not edited, and he signed it himself. I have reason to believe that he couldn't have forgotten his own quote and his own discovery to later claim that he was misquoted. So he misquoted himself if he was ever misquoted. So we have, and the reasons, since 1956, the reasons for coups have not changed. It's mismanagement of the economy, it is corruption, it is poverty, and suffering and striving people. So the reasons for coups, since in the pre-independence era, in 1956, most African countries had not got independence, a few had. But you find that the reason for the 6 coups that I'm talking about are the same. High levels of corruption, mismanaged economy, and poverty. So what is it that we can never learn as African people? The basics of self-governance that have eroded us. We have another emerging challenge of the youth badge. Africa, the average age of Africans is 20 years. And we have the fastest growing population in the world. So with the mismanagement of resources, struggle for resources, struggle for space, I think if we don't put our act together, we are yet to see more coups happening, especially in countries where there is authoritarian rule like Uganda.
Interesting. Dismas, picking from what Sarah is saying, and of course, there are different contexts. There's this whole discussion and the question of should we allow Africa design its own democracy according to what we face today, and not looking at possibly the terms that are set by the donor funding that comes with the donor funding. Yeah.
I think I want just first of all to add to what Sarah has said. The coups, other than what Sarah has said, it's about internal strife of the things that happen, and people are very uncomfortable with them. But there is also one which certain coups that have happened on the continent that are actually being propelled by outside forces. In particular, when you look at West Africa, majority of the coups were happening to former colonies of France, and France had an input in many of those that have happened. The second important thing to know, in particular in West Africa, is that there are young officers who carry out those coups. Almost their rank ranges between a lieutenant colonel and a colonel. not so much away from those ranks. There is a reason for that. Majority of them, they have trained in, as they are called, French régionnaires, something in French which I can't pronounce in my Rufumbira French. So there is that problem of having the French influence in terms of the kind of coups that take place, which is to safeguard the interests of France in Africa. You know how West Africa, the CFA, their currency, is the backbone, where the French pegs its finances. So every single French-speaking West African country has to be able to keep their money and peg it on the franc. So there is a lot of other things that are happening in between now. The idea of democracy is that we all aspire to have democracy. We think that should be the best thing that can happen to anyone on the continent. But the coups that are happening are a sign for certain inadequacies that have come with that kind of system, which people come promising under the Sarah says there's lots of promise about democracy, it's going to work, freedom of elections, how has it stopped? What are the reasons that mostly are fronted by people who carry out coups? Either dissatisfaction with the general administrative processes of the country, the economy, the selfishness with the leaders of this particular country. Some leaders who have gotten very weak and therefore susceptible to be only one gunshot and they have run away. So there's a plethora of things that are happening that can lead a person to that conclusion of why we have so many military coups on the continent.
I have a quick question for Dismas.
Yes.
You referred to the people, the coup plotters, being a certain age. Most of them are colonels. And I want to pick your mind on the likes of Jerry Rawlings, Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, the late. They overthrew their governments at 27 years. Valentin Stresser was 26 years.
Yes.
How are these ones? Were they also French trained? Or
No, they're not French trained. They, of course, that it might have sounded as a generalization. It's because West Africa, majority of the countries, but they are English-speaking countries and they have had their coups. Nigeria certainly has had the biggest number of coups. I think in Nigeria, Sudan, those have had the biggest number of coups. And interestingly, another island, Comoros, also ranks high at about nine coups d'etats. So even the English-speaking countries, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Nigeria, Ghana has had 9 coups d'etats. You know, so even those countries.
I think just to aid you, I think this pattern, at least for the better part of history that I'm acquainted with, when you see a political pattern, whether it is change of government or leadership behavior changes and transformations, it leads back to most times it leads back to who is the patron of this pattern. Like someone has to identify that before you before we put coinage on what it really is. Just to add on what all of you have been positing, if you observe the belt of nations that has experienced these coups also has a burden of conflict around them. When North Africa fell, especially Libya, or Gaddafi's, is it Gaddafi's Libya or Libya's Gaddafi? So when a country like Libya fell, there is so much that was in progress at the time of the collapse. And for a country like Mali, and actually, you can take that entire belt. They suffered a weight and a burden of conflict, crime, arms movements, rebel movements and groups. And so eventually the country gets weighed down by military will. Those countries get weighed down. There is someone I was listening to, I think at the time when the conflict had just happened, I think it was Mali. Yeah, I think it was Mali. And someone asked, so do we hope to see a civilian government taking taking charge of the country. And the lady said, there's a saying in Africa that when a man has killed a lion, you don't ask who will take the head. So the military has to take. That was, so you see such convictions and voices that eventually influence what people perceive to be the right thing. So we have those unquestioned, salient and silent burdens. Please carry on. I just wanted to supplement what you're saying.
So I was answering, I think, the question which Sarah was asking. So when you look at the profile of the people who carry out those coups, majority of the coups in around the 1960s, they were mainly young officers. If you look at Mali, look at Guinea, Conakry, the one we have, Doumbouya, who overthrew Conde. You Colonel Gaddafi himself, there was a Colonel. There is a reason, the Jerry Rawlings, there is a reason why it is a certain cadre of certain young officers. It's majority of them educated, majority of them are ambitious. They have not reached that stage of saying, I'm a general, now let me sit back and say, no, they have certain things they want to achieve. And they can look and be able to criticize. If in countries, if you look, even in Kenya, they were not the super generals, the ones who wanted to overthrow Moi. These were just low-ranking officers. So there is that group which, if you are in power and you are doing things which are not right, you need to keep your eyes open about them, or else they'll take you out.
Interesting.
You want to
No. I just wanted to add that that's the true characteristic of young people. They should be aggressive, and they should not settle for little. Yeah.
And I want to
I hope you are not saying that they should carry out coup d'etats, are you?
No. If really they think that somebody is doing something wrong and they can do something about it, why not?
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to bring on Dr. Deus. We see at the reformulation of AU from OAU in 2001. There was a slogan of African solutions for African problems. But we are saying, why have African institutions like AU itself, ECOWAS, SADC failed to prevent coups?
Maybe I should talk the way my president used to talk in the 70s and the early. So what do you want people to do when they have tried all things
and they have failed?
They have failed. What do you want them to do? But I hope that won't be the case. But I want to believe, maybe before I go, I want to believe that when leaders take charge, whether they have come by coup, whether they have been elected, and what, for example, President Museveni was, is to advance some kind of idea, an ideology, some kind of idea, some ideal. They are guided by an ideal. And that ideal shapes things over time. And with a view, in my view, with a view that when you have pushed people to an extent that they have nothing else to do, what do you want them to do? And sometimes one of the ways is to topple you, to deal with you. And
remove the problem.
And sort it. But I also like the way you are putting up this sloganeering. How do you start an organization that you're not capable of funding? Whoever funds takes the day. So this sloganeering of Africa is very shocking. Slogan, African solutions. We had our solutions. This is before colonialism for our own problems. But you see, we were constituted differently. Countries were constituted differently as protectorates, as different nations brought together. In our case, Uganda was a nation. Nyoro was a nation. Ankole was a nation. We forget that, and I don't know why. And so bring these nations together, and then all of a sudden, without addressing the basics like Nyerere did, you start sloganeering at an African level. I admire. That's why we've taken long Pan-Africanism, what? How can you be Pan-African and you still have mothers dying of basic children, your children dying of disease that are preventable, and yet at the same time you're ordering Mercedes Benzes from Europe, you have convoys of 30 cars, and you are playing big, and your children. Can this be Africa? So when they are saying African Union, it's a club of those who have reached, who are able to speak foreign languages or put on suits like what is this? So for me, when you take up leadership, when either by coup, either by popular democracy, you do so with an idea. That's what has always I've always been convinced about, and I'm not about to release that understanding that when you take on a responsibility of leadership, you have a set of ideas on which you want to rally people, ideals, and then program them, and then at an appropriate time hand over to them for further future programming. That your ideals end up becoming a culture. And so in this case, you are putting question marks on democracy because it has failed to become a culture of African people. Because probably these leaders were not even convinced about their ideals, or these ideals were fronted to achieve them a goal, but for a private intention, a goal of taking a country or taking a territory as their leader, but with a private goal. And there's a way I read through the song Mustard Seed, for example, from Zay.
Which version?
The old one, the first version. And then I begin to think that his private, actually he was very open to us. His private mission is in there. But when you look at the main rallying points, what I would call the ideals of the time, you see very good things, 10-point program. But in the book, there are specific things that he wanted also. And probably he has achieved them or not. And so back to OAU, its intention, or it achieved its intention. How can it achieve possibly? Probably to me, OAU would have been a Pan-African organization. Has Pan-Africanism taken root? I see people, I'm a Pan-Africanist. I don't know. Pan-Africanist, and I don't like that idiotism for heaven's sake. I mean, how can you be? I understand it's a good idea in its purity, in the highest purity, but you can't possibly continue to sing it if you are unable to practice it. You can't. And possibly is protect our people to the hilt. Is to protect the African, so that the price of taking the life of an African child, an African man or woman, taking their life is high. We make it so high that if anyone dares, including the leaders of the time, we deal with them. The way Israel has made a life of an Israelite equivalent almost the whole of Uganda.
More.
You take one Israelite, you are done. So I thought these Pan-Africanists would be, but the singers of Pan-Africanism later casualize on African lives. Okay, that one was killed. I think he was errant. This one, okay. You see, it really surprises me because if you really care about Africa, then you must look at the people, the well-being, the education, and the biggest problem, and I must admit, is ignorance. And the way we were put together, you really see ignorance is what really runs us. And to deal with it, we had to do some few things. One, we had to establish a national culture, and that can't be done. You can't do that without an idea, an ideal, an ideology. We had to have national languages to some extent. They were very important in order to deal with the real. That would have been the foundation. But we failed on that front miserably. And of course, when we failed as individual nations, don't dream too much about this. It's one way of also getting donor money from
maybe to ask
funding meetings. Maybe it makes sense. It makes sense when you are there and you are seeing friends, and maybe they keep us running. Who knows? Maybe we wouldn't have been here. But I think, to me, we should go forward. We should transform. We should stop meeting at Addis Ababa just for the sake of
maybe to ask,
meeting.
Doctor, maybe to ask, is there such a thing as a good coup?
Yes, why not? For if it's for a good reason, and that you understand the ideals of it, and that you quickly transform and hand over power to civilian authority, and of course after organizing. To me, even the most resounding coups that gave us independence, to me they were coups of some kind. We organized, we made things and we took over. But these colonialists were more organized. They quickly infiltrated the establishment and even guided it. Say, we have given you and then switched to imperialism. You see, they were. But you see, some leaders succeeded, like Mwalimu Nyerere. He quickly did the basics, transformed the idea into a reality, handed over the country to a system of believers, and now the country is rolling. You can criticize it. I have had people, I studied in Tanzania and say, oh, Tanzania is backward. No, but a country must be viewed holistically. Social formation, political formation, and economic formation. Tanzanians are on a very, the social formation is great. The country formed. That's why a president died, and US culturally they were handing over a nation to another leader. Politically, they demonstrated it, even in the middle of COVID. Politically, they have their differences. They disagree, and then agree. I used to watch them debate in parliament, and they disagree, but later you see them agreeing, especially if there is a foreign enemy. Meaning, Tanzania did its work. So some coups can be good, and I want even to equate the takeover of black people from the colonial masters, because they were taking over formations that weren't theirs. Originally, we were enclaves, Wasukuma, Waganda, and so we have this Uganda, which is a new thing we had never tested. And then we have this Tanzania, and Nyerere is in charge all of a sudden.
In recent
and
years,
he becomes very smart and organized.
Examples of successful and later transformative coups.
Is it successful or a good coup?
A good coup. Yeah, those that really transformed into a good democracy.
Especially when they are founded on ideals that are acceptable to the people and to those behind. Why not? If there's too much pain, why not a coup and remove this?
Rulings ended coups in Ghana.
Tell me.
Yes.
His was the rest.
But also Mzee here ended coups.
You can't tell how he will go. Has he ended them? We can only say he has ended them after he has gone.
But at least
he has
for
first
now.
Go.
For now,
not through a coup. Then that's when we shall celebrate that he has ended them.
But for now, we can say he ended coups. If he had the chance, he would have toppled someone in his youth.
Maybe
if he had the chance to, he would have toppled. And I think he would have done the way he has done up to when Sarah and friends and we all begin to think he's overstaying.
Unless he peacefully hands over power, he has not ended coups.
Why not? Why not?
But hasn't he overthrown himself?
Of course, several times.
Several times. So it's just the physical entrance of the army.
Some coups are good, especially when people have.
So we can say that they are good because then we've later seen him.
And especially if they are not foreign driven, or in our case for imperial intentions.
But you know, I don't know whether I can be able to say with certainty that there can be good causes, but not good coups.
Yes.
Because what is the sign? What does it tell you about a coup? Why does a coup happen? It happens because
When everything else has failed.
exactly when everything. Why should we get to the level of everything failing?
In Uganda, hasn't it failed?
No, I'm just using the
I
example.
know you are
Because
using
at that
general.
point,
yes.
I want to be
At least
specific.
at that point, it's a ray of hope. At that point, you have that's why they
Yeah,
have
for me, I would want-
temporarily like this one.
I
is
want
mad.
to
I would want to have
specific.
examples. I would want to see an example today.
Just a minute.
Yes.
I want to be specific, Dismas. You organize, because the only way to end coups was through free and fair election.
Yes.
You organize an election. Many journalists in Chambogo were asking the Electoral Commission, where are the results you're reading? And we also be doing like this. Where are they? Display them. On 2 days, nobody displayed those results. So when everything else fails, what choice do you leave with the people?
But show you that coups can be good, maybe temporarily. For example, this Mali one. Have you had any other? Has there been any other coup counter? People even jubilated on the streets.
No,
There's a possibility,
there
but we're
was
not
a ray
sure.
of hope.
At what point do we say that
There was
it has been a good coup?
a light.
Which time
Some
do we
people-
give? Which time do we give such coups for us to really credit them to have been good coups? And later, the causes that people have fought for or have
because you are
really-
judging something which is temporary also.
No, yeah,
Because a coup is a moment thing. It's not a government. It's a coup. You are changing bad leader, let's say, or a system that has. So it's a moment. Don't subject it to an evaluation of goodness or badness. It's a moment, and it brings light. Like, for example, when Mzee took over here, my dear, I was a young man. People's beards were plucked, people were kicked in the stomach. Those who were ruling us that time, people were excited. It's a moment. So don't subject it to a, because we expect that when you have a coup, then you start preparing to implant your ideals. And then, of course, promising elections and then a civilian government or whichever government you may put in place. Then you can evaluate that one. But the coup is a moment. It's like removing an abscess. When the moment when it's being, that patch is being, you feel, it's good.
I
It's
think-
a moment.
I think-
So don't evaluate it at the wrong time.
No, I don't think we can say there's a good or bad coup unless we have created a criteria. And the criteria may take the form of, is it not the deed, but the period of the coup? Because the worst, which is I think it's the worst in history, the Nigerian one where it was bloody, that ushered in another administration. Let's say the administration turns out to be good or does what people wanted it to do. Do you say that it was a good coup or a bad coup? You understand? So for me, I would prefer that a bad or a good coup.
From a national point of view, but from those now taking over, even when they
You
have
know,
losses,
no.
they are-
I think a
what are
coup
they
has
called?
no.
Those,
A coup has a lifespan. Yeah, there is the preparation, there is the execution, and then there is the aftermath, which was the intention of executing that coup. Regardless of was it really genuinely domestically engineered or accepted, or was it were there patterns to it? Because that has been the history. So
But let me ask on that question of foreign interference. We have a budget today where 50% will come from donor money.
Yes.
So you have, we choose when to refer to partners as foreigners, as foreign engineered. But when they are partnering with us, so if somebody can partner with you to pay salaries for your workers, can partner with you to run a parish development model, when do they become foreign? And not
at all
partners?
times they are foreign. Sorry.
Yeah, they are partners. Are they partners? Why do
Foreign
you think-
partners,
No. my
whether in
question,
good
Jackie,
times or bad times.
My question, Jack, is we partner with the foreign agencies or corporations or governments in democracy and development, including picking our bills. But when there is a coup, and you sense that somebody has had, like the man who overthrew Mugabe, had paid a visit to China. China engineered the coup, weren't there problems? What if he had not traveled? Wouldn't the coup have happened? When do we choose to call things foreign and domestic?
Can I answer that?
I think
I
for
hope, I
our-
hope,
Yeah,
I hope it
because
was.
it's your- yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I hope it was.
It was your question.
Exactly. There is a definition to the term foreign, and I don't think we can escape that.
No, I'm saying when
Maybe.
we choose to isolate it,
Or to define it, or to live by its definition. Maybe I
or
understand
to highlight
that way.
it.
Let me, personally, I think in my world, there is no time that, because it's a good time, now they're simply partners. They're still foreign partners.
Yeah.
They're not domestic partners. You understand? And whether it's in bad times when they're driving their own interests, they're still foreigners. But maybe what you can ask is, when do we attach this negativity? Because that history provides examples of those incidences. There is I don't know if I can remember the name of the 3 soldiers who were assigned to execute a coup in Uganda. One based in DRC, but formerly based in Nigeria, and another one based in South Sudan. Of course, South Sudan today, but at that time it was Sudan. I hope I can remember the name as we go along the way. When it's foreign engineered and foreign intended, it will definitely be characterized by what their interests are. If it is domestic driven or engineered, it will still have its own characteristics that serve the interests of those that are executing it. So at what point do we attach the negativity? I think it depends on the circumstances. Yeah.
So now, what if, because now most...
But there are
I
different,
think
there are different sets of coup d'etats, right? The one that we are referring to is, if, for example, the foreign interest, let's say the French, they have looking at a country and say that this country, this president who is in this country is not meeting our interests.
Yeah.
And therefore this person will have to deal away with him. Then we come and we collude with the Masesa and we say, you're going to overthrow him and we give you the logistical support. More like what they did to a person like Sankara.
This must let me be more direct for the benefit of the viewers out there. Many people say Idi Amin coup in 1971 was engineered by the British. But history also says that there were challenges within the army, and Dr. Bot actually wanted to arrest Amin.
No.
So it was a matter of who gets who first.
No.
So who engineered that?
No, so what happens is this, is that there is a crack in that
Yes,
particular
there's a problem.
a problem
There's an
in that
internal
problem, which is extremely
That's what I wanted.
exploited in that.
There is already
exploited.
a problem.
There is already a
so there is
problem.
nothing like foreign engineering.
No.
Maybe you can say foreign patronage.
The foreign they give
No,
it.
when you study
For
those
me-
processes preceding the coups, it's actually engineered. Because for the execution of the coup in
They
Uganda
come in
against
rust.
Obote,
They come in rust.
Sarah, there is never a day when a country does not have cracks. But who takes advantage of the cracks matters to history, in my judgment. Yeah, and to tell ourselves about it only helps us handle it better. Not that it justifies our cracks. No, it doesn't.
Can I ask my question the other way around?
Yes.
Many of us believe Uganda is mismanaged, but we have foreign partners. Can we say these partners are
Have a
partners of Museveni in bad governance?
Sarah, no.
That shows you the dilemma.
No, you may want to go after
No,
what's
no.
negative in a country, yeah, but following the international legal infrastructure, there is a reason why these things are done in a disguised manner, because they know it is wrong, no matter how cracked a
Like
country
the bad
is.
governance and people that support it.
But colleagues, I don't want us to forget, and I don't know why we forget. Me, I met these things. I am a scientist, so I earn a science money sometimes. But you know, when I
Yeah.
studied in
You
Tanzania,
are-
I benefited from political economy. I studied political economy. And there are things that got stuck in my mind. And I see all the social science forgetting these things. Why do you forget the national formation pillars in discussing these things? If you have been given a country and you have taken over a country either by coup or by popular democracy on the basis of ideas, why don't you guide its social, political, and economic formation? To the extent that, for example, if a foreigner attacked us, socially, as a people, we would say, no, this is beyond. We cannot allow you. Why are African leaders failing? Why did Nyerere do it? What magic did he use? Apparently, resources of Nyerere are still intact. Nyerere's Tanzania are still intact, more intact than Uganda's resources. He barred foreigners from exploiting. Magufuli was recently up in arms. How come they are not how come coups there are not fashionable? It's because the idea took shape.
Nation
The
building.
idea of social, political, and economic formation of Tanzania took shape. And that's there is a responsibility of every leader that claims to be a statesman. And I don't know,
Those, the
I don't know why you forget these pillars
the
of
dilemma
national
today-
formation.
The dilemma today could be at the point where the leader of this coup takes over. At what point do they then restore constitutionalism and possibly allow for
For example, in our case,
civilian rule?
Mzee has had all the chances.
The countries that we are
He
seeing at
took
West
over.
Africa, there's still a challenge of that. At
Was
what
a
point-
coup, by the way? Was it a coup or it was a flaw in it? Because we were ready to receive Mzee.
Were you ready?
Why not? For us, we were clapping.
According to other people who were in power then, they were not yet
For
ready.
us, the other side, we were really expecting the man.
No, I think it comes down to
The man,
this.
Mzee has been given all the time to guide this nation politically, economically, and socially.
Has he done it?
To have, to create a Ugandan.
Has he done
Because if you claim it is not possible, then you are wrong. Because Tanzania is even more complex. Sukumas, Chagas, very complicated people, Hayas, very many people. So where are we on the social front that when we are attacked by a foreigner, we all turn back and say, no, we cannot allow
Actually,
it.
you're asking the most right question right now, and I want to take you on
Where
that.
are we?
Every country in this neighborhood, apart from Uganda, united against colonialism, for example, which majorly formed the national souls, like Joe Biden calls it, a national soul. Tanzania has a story. Kenya has a story. Actually, Kenya, there was an attempt to make it a settler colony, right? And the Mau Mau, there is a history of the Mau Mau, there is a history of the Maji Maji, there is a history of how Rwanda was actually penalized for resisting. There is, but when we come home, even on the day of forming, giving us independence, we were not really a country. We
But
signed
there are
as
struggles
individuals.
of Musasizi with the farmers and teachers. There are
There
struggles.
is these divisions that a Ugandan,
Kabarega.
right from yes, and the other groupings in Uganda resisted Kabalega successfully. Actually got him, he earned himself punishments. Apparently, where was I reading this, that Bunyoro is covered with a lot of national, what do we call these gazetted pieces of land that we leave to wild animals?
Wildlife.
Parks, national parks. It has a lot of this because they wanted minimal expansion of populations in these spaces, partly because he was being punished. Look at how he relates with everyone else. So I still find it in our interest to be open and genuine about how we view our history vis-a-vis our unity or nation formation, to be specific.
But
on
doesn't
that day,
create a duty for
on that
leader?
day, absolutely,
Whatever issue you bring
absolutely
up,
does.
that create a
at the
duty
same
for
time,
leader?
absolutely, I agree with that.
And that you must scorn that duty
At the same time,
for a nation to be
But
united.
it depends on whether you want to score or you
It
don't
depends
want
on what you want a united nation or not.
What really preoccupied your idea?
Yes.
Why you were?
and the political reality, you may be focusing on the expected reality or policy reality, or but there is the political reality. I'm not justifying this. It's in my innermost wish of my life that Uganda becomes a nation. But I think it's very interesting when we study how we formed as a country, from when we were colony to were we a colony or a protectorate, or whatever the difference of in administration that is, and then when we become the republic, and then how these republics, how all the leaders, all the presidents relate with the republic. So studying that detail would give us, whether we want to call them advantages taken by the president or the gaps that he missed, I don't know, whichever you want to call them, but it's in our interest to study them. From my perspective, there is every reason why Uganda has to be different from Tanzania. There is every reason why Uganda has to be different from Kenya, because the forces of cohesion that formed the soul of a Kenyan. Even today, when you're driving through Nairobi, all around you there are matatus labeled with African pictures of African heroes, colonial heroes, music from Afrobeats. Even if you're seated in a matatu, that's what will dominate, because there is this attachment and aspiration to still remain an African, because they were pushed so hard, not just by colonialism, by the way. Even today, they have a large population of international settlement, which is very advantageous for them. I like it, but you have to understand from the detail.
Do they like it? Kenya is the
No,
only country
I said
with the official residence of the king.
absolutely.
The Queen of England.
Absolutely. So all of these things form how the day-to-day politics plays out. What the citizen, the ordinary citizen, feels about his environment. Tanzania and how they mingled with the Arab community. There is a story I know of Nyerere when he was fasting for how he would gather community leaders to sit in a room and fast for independence. Yeah. So the feeling towards their history has to rally them to a certain direction of things.
I would want to
The
believe
SADC,
that could be
when you study
that
SADC,
could be the issue of the leadership and offering and really being clear with the national value systems of a given country. In our case, I don't see.
I'm explaining
that.
why we, in a way, by all means, we have to be different. In Uganda, on the day of independence, Buganda wanted to retain superiority. That caused a crisis with the prime minister. By that crisis, I don't think we have recovered from to this day, politically. Yeah. So
Buganda got independence first.
So
On 8th
now you
of
have to ask,
October.
we were a country already drawn with boundaries.
Yeah, but maybe
But-
what I
but-
could
but,
add in, Deus,
yes,
before you come
yes.
in, I think it's important to note that as much as the struggle for independence in Uganda was not a one uniform
Yeah.
front, there were struggles for independence. There was the Bataka movement being driven by land rights in Uganda. There was the movement of women against the forced to grow cash crops vis-a-vis food crops, and that started the women movement. There was a movement of farmers and teachers led by Musasi's. Even when he was banished, he went underground, and the fight for Musasi's ushered in independence faster than it would have, and so many other struggles. So it's not true that Ugandans never had a struggle for independence, but maybe they had different fronts. Yeah, that's the only difference.
I was a
Interesting,
bit,
yes.
I've been a bit lucky because during my doctorate I read a lot of history of Uganda. One book that interested me, which I keep reading and getting interested, and I've even mentioned it before that I like reading it, by Ferez Mutiba, about the political history of Uganda. And in the book I was looking for the history of violence of this country and how it shaped the image over years. Well. And so I became almost a political economist in some way. And I found the people who were intellectuals at that time were speaking like the way she's speaking. It's like we've not moved. I didn't, our history is different.
Yes.
We have
And
yet to me, even President Museveni was very clear, and he identified the real problem of this country. And you know, number one problem?
And Serefi should have failed to address it.
I don't know, but I know he creating a national army. It was a problem. You cannot start attacking foreigners and without a national army. And to me, that was just like Nyerere felt Ujamaa was going to be the mover of things and the national language. He also identified, and he was right, a national army. You can't possibly hold the country together without a national army. It's recently when I saw someone tweeting, and I became very disturbed, very, very disturbed. By the way, I think I lost sleep. This is a Tusi Hima army. I felt very disturbed because my hero was disappointing me. How can this be in my one generation? Because I was reading all these things. I've been very, very keen on these struggles, reading privately as a person. And going to Tanzania helped me even become more.
But
violent.
you see, now, what is
the way she's talking?
No, wait,
one of the things that Ferez talks about these things clearly. The way we achieved our
before you
independence.
go ahead, Deus,
Yes.
you are saying Museveni's achievement is a national army, but also his undoing are those tweets that are disturbing you. When somebody says this is a Tutsi Hima army, when you look at the leadership of this army, what do you see? Don't you see the Tutsi Hima?
Because I don't want to get headache, so
you
I
can
don't go
read
there.
it.
But one of the things I know he identified clearly was having a national army. To me, very prime, very key. I felt he was following in the footsteps of his hero also, Mwalimu Nyerere. So achieving a national army to hold the people together, to hold their interests together, and then they disagree democratically inside, elect their leaders, and then the country goes on. And he was right on the spot. So what she's saying today, maybe it sounds very intellectual, but Mutimwa was discussing it in a very long time ago. The Museums know this, that we were formed differently, our histories. So what remained thereafter are actions of the leaders or those given an opportunity to guide political, social formation of this country. And so we can clearly say then, since all these things are known, we can clearly say that what I see in countries like Uganda and other countries is typical failure of leadership. Like President Mandela said it in Zambia, in Zimbabwe when Mugabe nationalized. A total failure of leadership, a failure to calculate and to guide formation, and to have also time to hand over to your fellow crusaders, and then they move the thing, and then you become a nation. Someone could say
So
it's not as easy as that.
Doctor, if I may
Are we
ask-
ready for a coup?
No, we are not. We are not.
Let's have just a little short break. I hope we get out there after the conversation. It is heated in here. We need to have a short break and follow this conversation on our online TV, Civic Space TV, where we are right now on Twitter. We're on Chat Show UG hashtag and Civic Space TV hashtag on Twitter. Facebook, we are running live. Be part of this conversation. It is heated, but from here, we've seen Africa, of course, over the first 2-3 decades. The coups had declined, but now suddenly we are seeing the re-emergence of these coups. Is it the new normal? We need to return this and have this further conversation, in-depth conversation after this short break. Very done.
The Citizens Chatroom happens every Friday at 2 p.m. on Civic Space TV Online on Facebook and YouTube. We invite you to be part of this conversation. Civic Space TV, freedom always.
Welcome back from that short break. The conversation in here has been heated, and we're still having it flowing. And joined today is Sarah, we have Dismas, Deus, and Jackie right at the last of where I'm seated, and into the conversation. And I would not want to go back, take you back into the history of this conversation. We need to bring it, refocus it to the cause. And I want to ask, right again with Sarah, why has unconstitutional change of government become the red line of African statutory norms and democracy and governance today?
You know, Africa, I think the people who have access to leadership have all turned out to be selfish. Once people access power, they look at their comfort and the comfort of their families. They forget the ideals. They forget the nation building that Dr. Kamunyu was mentioning. They forget the socio-economic welfare of the people. Africa has all instruments of democracy, including the ACDE, the African Charter on Democracy, Elections, and governance. Article 25 of the Charter is very clear that no country in Africa should advance a constitutional amendment aimed at defeating peaceful handover of power. I think that was the only attempt African Union moved to systematically address the cause of coups. Because the cause of coups is a democracy deficit. Somebody gets into power and they make it very hard for everybody else, including the will of the people, to get them out. So they work to defeat the will of the people. They remove, we have all agreed that the past decades of constitutional making and constitutionalism, 1990s, early 2000s, there was stability in Africa, those 2 decades. But from 2011, starting with the uprising in Tunisia, followed by Libya, I think there were about 7 uprisings in total, where leaders were overthrown through uprisings, including Burkina Faso and others. So in 2011, we started witnessing the failure of constitutionalism, the failure of democracy, and the main spark was one, like in Burkina Faso. It was an attempt to amend, to remove term limits. Countries like Uganda that are more, I don't know what word to use, that are more tolerant to dictatorship, autocracy. We had accommodated the removal of term limits in 2005. But we all now, I hope that we all now agree as a country that we dug our own grave with that amendment, given a stage where we are today and the degeneration of governance in Uganda.
No, Sarah, maybe to ask also, you talked about, of course, ACDEG, but I think about 2 days ago, there was the African peer review mechanism celebration.
It's a talking shop.
Yeah, so I want you to ask
let me stick on the legal instruments.
Yes.
APRM is not a legal mechanism. It's a talking shop.
It is also for...
I know, it's part of AU, but it's a side event. So let me first talk of the main legal instruments to build my constitutionalism. We can't build the constitutionalism on people's will, so will and whatever. Constitutionalism is built on the strength of the laws.
Because the APR also has, actually, it pushes for what we are talking about here.
I know, I will come to that, I will come to that, but let me first explain the cause and the failure of constitutionalism. So there was a rise in removing constitutional safeguards. And we can mention the countries, including Rwanda, Uganda, Djibouti, let me see where I noted them, that removed constitutional safeguards for peaceful handover of power. Rwanda, Uganda, Republic of Congo, Gabon, Chad, Equatorial Guinea, and Djibouti. So that's what sparked the uprisings, some of them were like Tunisia was about the cost of living, like we are experiencing now. In Burkina Faso was a defeat, people's will to defeat, lifting of term limits. Libya was a different cause altogether. So we had 7 uprisings that also laid the foundation for the coups that we are seeing now. Because the first shift, our transition from constitutionalism of the 2 decades was the uprisings, and now it has ushered us into coups where Africa was reversing from by enacting the African Union Constitutive Act in 2000 that was later adopted in 2001. The African Union Constitutive Act outlaws coups, although it does not provide, it does not outlaw them in a very serious manner, because it has a provision that if you take power through the force of arms or any other unconstitutional means, then you are suspended from AU and you have 6 months to restore constitutional democracy. But it did not move further to create clear sanctions or an early warning mechanism for these coups, because how do they happen? In many countries where they have happened, including uprisings, it is a failure to conduct free and fair elections, tampering with the safeguards for peaceful handover of power to keep, for strong men to keep themselves in power, like we have in Uganda and Rwanda and other countries. So if these countries now a coup happened, God forbid, I think it would be laughable for anybody to claim that it is foreign engineered, because we have a national crisis.
I would want to bring you Dismas in, and of course, for example, in Guinea, we see coup leaders say concerns about their concerns were about corruption and failing of the economy. Of course, motivated by their takeover. That's motivated their takeover in 2021, as well as the fact that they deposed off President Alpha Conde, who has been serving his 3rd term after then. So in here, we are seeing a new surge in the coups, and we're asking ourselves, why is this happening?
But I think precisely that's the question we have been answering. There are quite a lot of things, misuse of natural resources. In Guinea, for example, I've been to Guinea. Guinea is quite a very Conakry, you can't even compare it to any being a very serious city. It's not, it's still, you know, a country that is developing, but it has quite a lot of minerals, right? The conglomerates that control the minerals in Guinea, Conakry, are mainly Chinese and French. And for them, when the control was became an issue, because President Alpha Conde started questioning why they didn't want nationals to be part of the process of owning those mines. That's when they started plotting against him. Now, who overthrew him? His bodyguard. So who knows you better, more than the person who guards you all the time? There was a picture that came out in which this new guy in what is it, Dumbaya, the one of Guinea,
yes.
the tall,
yes,
he would be guarding him and holding an umbrella for the president. Rain is hitting him, he would be holding an umbrella for Conde before
until
he overthrew.
He got enough.
And until he got enough. Because those in the know, and I have friends there, they will tell you that you would be there listening to him speak, and 10 minutes would forget what he had said as a president. So he had really reached a level in which, and his overthrow was the easiest. You see, so which means, speaks to the point, I think, was it Jackie or you who said something about the system has broken down so badly that even just one click of a finger, how did the Valentine Strasser come to power? Valentine Strasser, he just walked and the president said, there are soldiers moving towards me, and he ran over and jumped over his fence. And that was the coup.
How do you describe the Zimbabwe issue?
The Zimbabwe one, that was there are different coups. There are palace coups. There are those ones push where someone like is just waiting for the last word. I think Mugabe was gone Mugabe was socially gone, politically,
And
mentally.
there was also a popular demand in the streets, meaning it was also
Yeah,
a
there was an
citizens,
uprising.
citizens.
And in part, and that is where the other problem is, Damian, is that sometimes it's a reaction against a particular patriarchal family that you have created, because in the Mugabe case, there was also about his wife,
Yes.
which was a problem to many people. She was living a different life, totally oblivious of what the rest of the people were living as. And that
And she had taken over the leadership of the party. Yeah.
And she was sidelining all the people who had started that political party, the ruling party in Zimbabwe. So there are a lot of things that happen, and you can draw parallels elsewhere on the continent. Egypt, Hosni Mubarak was overthrown because his wife was controlling bread, the supply of bread. In Egypt, if you don't have bread, no one eats. It's not like Uganda where you have
even
cassava.
Sudan.
I like cassava, even if I hear the president doesn't like it.
Yes, even in Sudan.
Even
bread.
Sudan, if you don't have bread, you can't survive. So in Egypt and Sudan,
Mzee asked you to eat cassava,
yes,
so he likes it.
he does. He said he doesn't eat cassava, he eats karo. But it's so
Because it has cyanide in it. You can over time.
I am growing cassava. I enjoy cassava.
So in Sudan and Egypt, the control, and Tunisia actually, even Tunisia and Algeria, the control of bread determines what exactly. All of them were overthrown because of bread. So each country has its own unique things. I was speaking the other day, they invited me to a rota and they were asking me, can a Tunisia happen in Uganda? Most likely not. Most likely not. I think Uganda is so blessed that it's the only country where you can have $1 and you eat 2 meals.
Can you still do?
Yes.
$1 is 3,000. Which meals?
You can eat cassava and beans.
In
Twice?
some chicha, in some
No, but
yes.
but a pipe of cassava is now 2,000.
No, but
and then you can do it 2 times.
Yeah. You can.
And then buy some dodo also next to it.
And you see the fish. You have silverfish.
I can enter your
A kilo of beans is 4,000 and 1 root of cassava is 2,000.
No, it's only now that it has changed the
Sarah,
date.
it's very possible. Very, very possible. And you can eat
You can eat
nutritious
food
meal.
of 300 shillings in Owino.
Eggplants,
Today?
Yes.
cassava, silverfish.
I want to take you there one day.
Very nutritious.
Sarah, it's very possible.
Cooked, eh?
Yes.
Cooked. 300.
Yes. They put you in a cavera and you go.
If there is no cooking oil, because I don't take cooking oil.
One commando in the at lunch, another one in the you have
So there is different political processes, and each country has certain uniqueness about it, and why people turn the way they are. Others burn themselves as a means of showing their discontent. Others walk to the presidential palace. Others shoot. So
Interesting. Deus, I want you to just come off a little the coups, but on the debates that are happening around, especially like in most of the spaces since 2000, the citizens' debate on democracy and governance has evolved. Of course, our priorities have shifted to quality of the electoral process. We've been discussing it here, the value of the term limits, but also the legitimacy of the governance. I want to know why are we now from discussing, taking those dynamics of our conversations?
Why are we moving away from those?
Why are we now taking that shape of debate from the issues, but now we are looking at the nature of democracy mainly. We are looking at the quality of the electoral process as what the things that really are
to me
mattering us.
they are key. They are key because the like quality of electoral processes is what defines a free and fair election, which then brings in a legitimate leader, a popular elected leader. And I think that's also very key foundation of democracy and going democratic. If you have a free and fair election, an election which is not rigged, and I hope someday we will reflect on all these things, what elections really meant in this time. So, by the way, before I tackle that, if anyone in this country thinks that a revolution, takeover of power will come from our ordinary people because they lack food and water to drink, they should forget. We should start articulating other things. Maybe I see the Airites are the ones delaying. Look at Parliament passing a budget that creates a crisis in the education sector. And they don't even know the long-term impacts of what they've done. Airites, a group of Airites, you can see. So they are the ones delaying this thing. So we should forget. Back to the discussion on why people are shifting to. It's important because, and I think it's a saving discussion. And this is why sometimes I like Sarah insisting on issues of constitutionalism. This is what this is what will possibly save this country. That if we respected the will of the people, like I like what is happening in Kenya. People are disagreeing, bashing each other, but no one is tear gassing.
Yeah.
No one is
People
pushing them on the wall.
People
People are free to attend. People are free, until that is achieved, and it comes from the quality of electioneering, quality, and that the will of the people is, whether they've elected an idiot or what, the will of the people is respected.
Yeah.
And that there are institutions, and this is where I have a problem. This is where Uganda can easily run into crisis because the institutions have been undermined, and because public service, like in Japan, Japan can be running okay for 2 years without a prime minister. Why? Because the institutions are working, the public service is working, and that public service has integrity to run the affairs of the country. And so
UK has fired theirs in one day. From yesterday morning, today is gone. He has already tabled in his resignation.
You can see. So so the quality of the people, and of course the quality of electioneering is also about the quality of the people. And this is where Airites like us have a role. That we can't possibly, if we really love this country, we must discuss things that really matter. And people are right to discuss the quality of election because we don't want coups. Why they shouldn't discuss coups?
Yeah,
they shouldn't discuss armies or what.
Are we saying now that our politics is maturing? That now we're now discussing some of those?
We could be. We could be. And I wish the president, and I don't miss chance to because I am from childhood. By all standards, I have grown, and I can request the president on air to give chance to this process to mature. Such that for once really, and for the blessings from God, we can live in a country that is safe into posterity. I'm very sincere about this. I'm asking.
But
divine intervention
you
now.
better join the Bible.
No. That my president can allow these processes, very nice processes, and a free and an independent electoral commission in the sense of independence, and so that we can now mature. I think he would sit back and say, look, I created this beautiful thing.
What if
they are disagreeing?
How does it benefit
they are disagreeing. They are wrangling, but they love their nation. When they disagree for some time, they also take off time to agree, even when there are damages.
And Doctor, you're saying that Jack is saying things which are ideal. Those are idealism that you're talking about. They're not practical.
No. I'm not talking about the person I'm talking to is also ideal. And I'm asking that if he accorded me chance to see that in my lifetime, I have a right to ask. Did no one, as a child, I followed carefully, but also as an adult, I have had a duty in this country. And so I beg that he respects these processes and he gives them chance to culminate into some kind of a point of progress where we have free and fair elections, where we can move, we can avoid coups, we can also be like Kenya, where presidents, people are competing and no one is being tear gassed. No one is claiming ownership of the army.
Don't you think you're asking for water from a rock?
I know I still have belief. I've kept telling, and I mean it. I still believe that my president has capacity.
At this age?
Why not? Why not? Has capacity to do this, to allow these processes and to mature us. That would be because what else would I want from? I have grown in his government. I have reached this age. I have not died of stray bullet or anything. I don't want it because I dreaded it when we were children, and so I don't want it for my children and his grandchildren. I don't wish for it.
But you have seen his forces do it. Kill people through the so-called stray bullets.
They were being investigated. I don't know if they've been brought to book. Have they been prosecuted? I have not had a prosecution. No, that will happen at some point because you can't kill with impunity without a reward from God or Satan. I don't know. You can't. That's not possible because these are people's children. You are killing people's children. So you can't just kill and think you will go away with it. Maybe in your lifetime you'll see some kind of lame person in your family and wonder why. Because God is crying somewhere. Or a child is crying. So for me, this shift is very good and we should drive it. We should stop talking about, we shouldn't talk about coups. We shouldn't. Why? Why should we? We should call on the president. We should kneel for him if we can. And of course, kneeling with a sense of responsibility and ownership, because this country belongs to us. So I hope someone doesn't think we are Congolese refugees here.
Should we kneel or should demand?
Sometimes some kneading can have some elements of demand.
I think that's his position.
So such that we can see.
I will not join
me and Sarah, we were young people when they was coming in. And we had too much hope. I have talked to her and we shared the foundation, we shared anguish in a way, but far away from each other. We should be afforded a chance to see a great promise of a peaceful handover of power, of an election that is taking place in our neighborhood. A legitimate, where people aren't, of course they have had their own history, where there's no tear gas, where people are talking, where people are enjoying the process, and of course I hope people will accept that they have lost or what. But whatever the situation, they actually also come out of it. They usually come out of it also still. I want to see that nation. Not one where I'm being put on gunpoint to explain how I became Mwezi or how. I don't want to see those things, or how I became a teacher in Makerere, or why I'm speaking English, or why I'm not speaking Uganda very well. I don't want that situation ever again. And military all over with guns. I want to see citizens enjoying their country in this era of my childhood hero. I want to see it. I am asking God. I do that every day. I am not joking.
And you're right.
And I want everyone to join us and ask the Creator to do that for our president. Because it was a great promise for us in our generation, me and Sarah's generation. And we should not vulgarize that promise in any way and approximate it to mean some kind of lie that he was. No, it is true.
That's what I wanted to ask.
The president still exists.
Holding it.
The president still exists. Whether it doesn't exist, the president still exists. He can still give us that that gift.
Now, off there. Let me bring in Jackie. Jackie, let's get back to the coups.
Before you ask me the question,
Yes.
I want to rest the spirit in this room. We'll have a peaceful handover of power. And
You are saying that as who?
We can. You
No,
said
that we shall
Absolutely.
have. As who?
No. I'm saying this as a Ugandan citizen. I think there is a great deal of fatigue. It doesn't matter in who wants the power, but there has to be peace. Everyone has something to lose. Should we go the other way? But that wasn't really my point. What I wanted to say to Dr. Deus, there is something about Uganda's presidency. Every arrival of a Ugandan president has a darkness about it. I don't know if those are the right terms to use. Yeah?
No, there is something you know.
No. I'm really referring to history. Yeah? All the 9 presidencies we've had. Was it Onyangobo who said, who wrote about our presidencies? You just don't know when it's done until it's done.
What's the darkness around Museveni?
No, I'm not talking about. Museveni came after war, right? That is a darkness. We shed blood. People died.
He shed blood.
No,
We did not.
No. There was a war supported by Ugandans, fought by Ugandans. I hate to say it is Museveni. I think that would be a
Against
historical
Ugandans.
mistake. Yeah.
No,
I think
you
that's a
can
historical
say
mistake.
we if you were a part of them. I was not part of them.
But for me, I liked the war.
Okay.
Because
Exactly.
it
Again,
felt
again,
like
again,
it
it's
was that
bringing
thing you were
hope.
talking about of
Against
it was
Uganda.
like it was
Okay.
bringing hope.
Exactly.
I
It was a
am
ray
being
of hope.
sincere.
Okay, but I
every
did not
day we
shed
waited.
blood.
well,
But I never participated.
war
If
is
I
a
am
very,
accused
war is a
for-
very difficult thing. It can be good on your side, but it has an element of being bad for some
On the
other
other
person.
people.
Absolutely,
The people
because
who are
there is an
affected,
enemy.
that you relate with.
And
today.
I agree, but I want you to take my spirit because it also that spirit
That has
identifies
rested it.
with some today.
She has something blind that she can guarantee peaceful handover of power.
I think it's
You
a
have to
shared.
identify with my spirit. I had a
I
spirit,
didn't know you were this
and
powerful.
I am thinking also. I am also thinking that there are people right today, children, who identify with my childhood spirit.
Yes, I agree with you.
That they would want to see war on the streets for things that are not going wrong well in their lives. So that's why I want my childhood spirit, this toddler spirit, to be respected by my leader who is still living, and offer a process that will take this country to another level in my lifetime.
How old is he?
Whatever age, I don't, he still has capacity.
to do that
do
overnight. Is it overnight?
No. He still has capacity to do it.
No, Jack,
He
I wanted
has-
to ask,
he has the power.
probably maybe just to
I believe
to
I
get us
am
off
a
there.
believer.
Yeah.
AU ECOWAS, of course, had sanctions that they are put on Mali, Guinea, the coup, plot,
group,
yeah. So we want to ask, do you think that imposing sanctions on states where coups have happened will regulate coups?
I think that's for record purposes, but you're just worsening the situation. Because by the time these coups happen, there are crises within the country, social, political, economic. So when you impose the sanctions, I think from time to time, the AU and all these other regional bodies would like to be to go on record that something happened.
Posturing.
No. I'm not sure it's posturing because the actual whatever the content of these designated sanctions are will be executed. But what does it change? You have to ask what builds a coup. I mean, someone is free to have a question like this or a debate like this on BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera. But you as an African, what by the time a coup is executed, what has happened. There is population quality, there is a miseducation, there is a military failure, there is a political constitutional failure, there is this failure across the board in various aspects of a country. So to impose a sanction is just to say that we saw something wrong and we acted. Or something happened in a particular country in Africa and we acted. But is that punishment really applicable to the situation?
But Jackie, first of all, the kind of sanctions that are imposed by the African Union and the regional economic communities on countries that make coup d'etats, they are actually very, very symbolic. They are not economic.
No, I understand that.
They're not
Absolutely.
economic. They're just simply saying that you can't participate in the affairs of the community.
Yes.
Either the African Union, you can't attend the summit, you can't blah, 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 as long as you have been given a 6 months in which you would have changed.
I think what I'm trying to address is the intention of the sanction. Yeah?
But
On the side of the regional body and AU.
Jack, 1 minute. Dismas, ECOWAS and their military wing, ECOMOG, had a step of upgrading sanctions to the extent that they would deploy ECOMOG to remove you.
Yes, ECOWAS does.
Yes. So it's not just mere sanctions.
No.
They
The
give
African
you-
Union,
yes,
the African Union, the ones of the African Union is not attending the affairs of the African Union because the difference being
AU is weak, but-
ECOWAS does, SADC does not,
Yeah,
and
it's
the
only ECOWAS.
ECAS and the East African Community. It is only ECOWAS because ECOWAS already has even an early warning mechanism
Yes.
that shows that this place has a weakness. They knew that all those coups were going to happen in those countries. It was a question of time and who was going to carry out the coup. So
Yes, and you take over power, they give you 2 months to announce a calendar for elections. You have a maximum of 6 months to conduct elections. If you fail to announce a calendar, ECOMOG overruns it.
yes.
So why is it so? Why do we see ECOWAS really this effective?
It has intervened in Ivory Coast. It has intervened in Burkina Faso. And when actually they were going to Mali, it was because in Mali there was a problem of the presence of the French. It has interest, the complication there, because they are fighting the Sahel, the what do you call them? The Tuaregs, the Tuareg rebel groups. So that one was complicated. But Sarah is right. ECOWAS has systems. It's actually it's even at the UN, it's referred to as one of the most advanced intervention processes that ECOWAS has developed in terms of intervention where there are coups and.
Is it because of the history of too many coups around?
Of course, they have the experience of so many coups, and
but they also have the political and I think economic muscles to pull off those.
Yes, because you'll find the countries really which are very strong. Nigeria, very strong if it comes to those kind of things.
So then we ask the question. Are they effective in reducing or averting coups?
It's what Jackie was saying.
Yes.
The process of doing a coup is. I do think that even the person who's carrying out a coup knows that there are sanctions.
Exactly.
They know.
Yeah.
So they will say that these sanctions, we'll leave them 6 months. We'll leave them and we'll go to follow what Sarah has described, the 2 months, then as they delaying tactic, they stand and then they win the election and then they are president.
So
we cannot really come out and say
but
that really because
for
of these
heaven's
blocks
sake,
then yes.
for me, that's why
I
you refer
hold
to
an
them as
argument.
records.
I hold an argument that there is no coup that can possibly be successful without popular support of military and citizens. I hold that view.
But those
And
that
so,
are successful,
to me,
we don't
those
need
that have not been successful, then they are not successful coups. Let's say. But the coup where you are given 6 months to organize is also a recognition that citizens wanted it, but they want you to return power to the citizens.
Yeah, the crisis that exists prior to the coup.
They recognize it. The 6 months they give you to me is the certificate of recognition that yes, you responded to people's crisis, you responded to the army's outcry. We give you 6 months to return power to normality. But I think once again, I consider a coup to be like when you are dissecting an abscess, when you are cutting through a chizimba, taking the pus out. It has a lot of, it causes a lot of very excruciating pain. So when you chop through it, you
With
can't
some
possibly think that point, that moment is not relieving.
Especially
Stop-
where the will of the
Stop
people has been
moralizing
extremely frustrated.
coups, successful coups, and that go through the process of 6 months and what are people's coups.
Yeah.
They are important. They're like cutting through an abscess. And if and I go back to what I told you, I was speaking like
So
Mzee
what is the people's
70s and early 80s.
No, these are coups.
80s. If people have been pushed to the wall,
Or frustrated.
frustrated, and they are every effort frustrated, what do you want them to do? To me, that frustration is like this Chizimba,
The
like
boil.
the boil.
Yeah, but because
So a coup cuts through it, and there's relief.
and then this takes us to
For
the
a
failure.
significant,
failure of democratic
portion of the
processes.
population.
Yes.
The failure of democratization and democratic processes. If you frustrate the will of the people, it's only a matter of time for such things like coups to happen. Because you cannot permanently frustrate the will of the majority of people. You cannot. Something gives way. And the coup is one of those things. An uprising is another.
Whether it's bad to some group, but there will always be an element of popularity. That's why in Mali, another one, Burkina Faso, I think, you saw people on the streets.
Yeah.
Happy.
Even in Guinea.
Yes,
Even here,
celebrating.
even I was a young person, my dear. I was in a football pitch. I was in a band about to receive Rwakasisi. My friend, we danced. What are you talking about? Because we were feeling stressed. We were stressed politically. We were stressed socially. We were stressed
But
economically.
doctor, others,
So what are you saying?
Others, some of those celebrations are just you, a spur of the moment
You know,
of something
absolutely.
new that has happened.
Yeah, why not?
It is not
Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah,
saying
but
that we are welcoming.
Can the death of your father be celebrated?
It depends.
So can you say that it's a spur of the
No,
moment
I
and
think
people are joining in?
it's
No.
dangerous to generalize
No,
these things.
no.
Because the list of coups or the number of coups that Sarah referred to, the over 100 on this continent. If you remember, probably, I don't know if Sarah was there at the time or
Which time?
Dismas, when coups were being executed in the name of the Cold War, when the communists and the capitalists were having were locking horns here on the continent. Anyone could have said that those people were happy or dancing on the streets because it was the people's will. Eventually, we learned actually the people who executed the coups actually confessed we were the ones who were executing the coups. So
there were 188 coups
yeah, I remember
with an
that.
average of 4 coups per year.
Actually,
Between 156,
I think the average
1956 and 2001.
The interesting average take that I've come across was that there was a coup on this continent every 55 days.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And Sudan has the highest, 17, Burundi 11, Ghana 10, and Sierra Leone 10.
Yes, but you people.
So what is the issue? What is the cause of those recurring coups?
Wait.
Exactly. Now
Look
that's
at
what you
why
need to
I
address.
why I told you, Ari, the failure of leadership. You see, people's happiness, whether you want to characterize it, is real. Whether they have joined excited.
You know you
It
can
shows
execute a
you
coup in a
the
population
nature.
of happy people.
Yes, you can. Yes, why not? Why not? And
You
it
just
shows-
need to exploit one bad story and then execute a coup.
Yes, but you can possibly execute it when your army, your economy, and your people are successfully are happy.
Uganda is ranked
You
happiest
can't.
nation in East
You
Africa.
can't because
And then we have
No,
highlights here.
but that happiness has nothing to do with governance. That's what I wanted to underscore.
What is the happiness
I
then?
had
The character of what Churchill defined as part of Africa. Happy people, welcoming, we like happening, our pork joints. If we have money for
this
beer,
fuel crisis,
Fridays are like Christmas. That has nothing to do with the terrible
So
governance.
with
we
this
are
fuel crisis,
experiencing.
do we still rank?
No, some people still hang out. Check bars on
Why are
Friday.
you talking about all
Yes.
the things to eat and
No,
drink
Sarah, so
and
you're
have a
saying-
moment and
No.
go to bed?
But that's
Why
what
are you
is
not talking
ranked.
about
If you
my
look at
happiness?
the happiness index, global happiness index, those are some of the
But you should
indicators.
also talk about how I'm happy with my leader. That's also
Yes.
part of the
Are you
happiness.
happy?
That's part of the happiness.
He said he's happy.
Are you happy?
No, I'm trying to tell you that I'm trying to answer her.
Me, I'm not.
But to underscore the because the way I understand when I say happiness, I don't mean food to eat, what those small
Beer,
things,
pork.
beer, what. I'm talking about a total package of my being, and that I wake up every day and I see hope in everything. That I can choose to be a leader and I become one. I can aspire to be the president of Uganda and I'm not stopped. I can. Me, that's how. That's the kind of happiness me. And I'm sure all the people who went through ideology classes, including the military, understand this form of happiness.
Yeah,
You
but
get
it's
me?
not the
Wait
one
a
that
minute.
is
Wait a
ranked.
minute. Wait a minute. I know. Recently in the United States, when this lady was testifying, this urgent testimony, which was scheduled abruptly, you listen to it.
Against Trump.
Yes,
And the
Trump
insurrection.
ordered that he be taken to Capitol Hill, and the soldier, the CIA,
Secret Service said no.
said no. That's what I'm talking about. That when you're a leader, you allow institutions to form to an extent that everything is done for survival of nation, for survival of state.
But that depends on whether you want the survival of the nation or the survival of the
If Trump
person.
had his
But I'm
way,
talking to those who are not allowing this opportunity. I'm saying that if you are a leader worth a statesman's name
Yes.
or statesman's accolade, you must allow and leave a situation where the chief of armed forces calls you as a president, says, at this level of corruption, at this level of ineptness, at this level of suffering of the people,
I'm
we will
overthrowing
not
you.
give, no,
You will
we
not.
may not give you protection.
that
when
happened
things
in Tanzania.
We may not
under
give you
President
protection.
Kikwete, before he fired his former prime minister, who later contested for presidency. The army called him and said, Your Excellency, we are worried. If you don't do anything about corruption, we
cannot offer you
might-
protection here.
we
That's
might
why-
not
that's why I come-
guarantee your security.
Yeah, that's why-
And that's what moved Kikwete to reshuffle
That's
his
why
cabinet.
I come in, and of course, as we are turning into towards our last part, and of course, this is breaking off. I need to start with Deus. It's where you are there. What can be done today and going forward to prevent future coups? As one of our as we are closing.
Prayer.
I talk in reality. For the sake of Uganda, President Yoweri Museveni is our legitimately elected leader,
Are you sure?
and he's in charge of this country for the last 36 now, going to 37
Are you sure
years.
about the legitimate?
37 years. And me, what I'm praying for is that no coup should happen.
Like Dismas said, the prayer which
Yes.
you are doing.
Should happen. That where he's been a leader for 37 years. Because that's what will that mean? Is that he has failed miserably to guide the formation of a country politically, socially, and economically. He has had the people's mandate and the people's blessings, including mine. I voted him several times. And so I want to live in a country, and I beg, me as a citizen and as a friend of the NRM, that it should afford us a chance to see a country transiting to never have a coup in our sight again, for our children and for his grandchildren. And two is to allow the modern tools that through which we express people's will to form in order to realize a leader that represents the people's will, and also afford us that one point he mentioned. I still remember it, I still read it. Building a nation's army, an army that will protect the will of the people. Not an army that will protect their assets, but the will of the people, the will of Ugandans.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Deus. Sarah, we know, of course, poorer countries and, of course, countries that have wanting democracies are prone to coups. In this case, we're asking, and the way forward, how can we do to prevent future coups?
Maybe to build on what Dr. Kamunyu has said, no leader should attempt to shortchange the will of the people. You can fail to build the economy, you can fail to build the social cohesion, but let the will of the people prevail in both judging your leadership and determining how they want to be governed. In all these countries that we are discussing, there are three key issues that stand out: massive corruption, mismanagement of the economy, and subverting the will of the people. We already have these characteristics, unfortunately, present in Uganda. Like the preamble of our constitution says, remembering our turbulent and chaotic history. We have never had a leader ushered in through elections as a country. We have never witnessed peaceful handover of power, save for the time we received instruments of independence from the protectorate government. President Museveni can pretend to justify his overstay as an elected leader, but we know the contestations we go through, and that's why I was challenging the use of legitimate, being legitimately elected. It is contested in this country. He has faced 3 election petitions in the Supreme Court of this country. The Supreme Court is on record in the 3 petitions for having stated that there was no fairness in the elections. They just fall shy of annulling these elections. Unless we solve that problem, nobody should claim that Uganda is a stable country and has safeguards against coups.
Interesting. Time will tell. Those maybe.
My prayer is
Jackie?
I think this whole debate of coups and constitutionalism, it has one cell: the citizen. I think if we can be deliberate on making the citizen, then we can trust that the citizen will be against the coup, but will also be worth acknowledging in the constitutional processes. I rest my case.
Thank you. That's a good one, a good way of ending. Short one. Finally, Dismas.
You know, I think we have discussed about coups, why coups happen on the Africa continent. I think there's they can't be happening out of the. There must be something that is terribly wrong that leads people to take up, which possibly speaks to what Sarah is saying, that if you don't give people the will of the people to be exercised, other people are picking other options. It's not a very good thing that Africa is leading the whole world in coup d'etats. We have our own problems, so many other problems that we lead the world in. Poverty, yet we are the richest, yet we are what? But
And imperialism.
yes. So the point is, let's discuss, let's dissuade the very things that force people to make coup d'etats. The moment those ones are addressed, then there is not even any justification for us to have this conversation.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you very much, Dismas, and of course, honoring our invitation, Jackie, Deus, for you regular here, and Sarah, regular panelist. Thank you very much, our viewers out there, for being part of this conversation. I hope you've enjoyed it. It was quite heated and deep. And from me and the crew at Civic Space TV out there, we wish you
David
the
is
best of the
still in
weekend.
Deus is still in prayer mode.
Yeah. Those continue praying for us. Our viewers out there, please follow this conversation. We are
deep
still
one, by the
running
way.
on our Twitter spaces and
I'm
everywhere on
serious.
social media.
It's
May
not easy.
God bless Uganda.